The Garden Report is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Hey, Brian Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report NBA Draft Edition. And the Celtics will once again try to find a player that they can invest in into the future, develop, maybe fit into the depth spots, the bench on this team, as they did a year ago with Jordan Walsh. And this year, a similar situation for Boston. They're at 30 in the first round, so they will have a pick in Wednesday's NBA draft. They will have a second-round pick, thanks to, I believe, the Grant sign-in trade got them a second-round pick this year. Of course, they moved back a ton, too. It might have been the moving back last year that got them a second-round pick this year. And they have plenty of second-round picks to play around with into the future. So both options exist. Yahoo reporting that the Celtics are looking to move up and down this board. They're open to both possibilities there. I would lean down just for the cap reasons, for the cost reasons, and that's something the Celtics have to consider here. 2 years guaranteed salary for the 30th overall pick. I think a little bit more flexibility possible with a second round pick. So do you accumulate more assets into the future by moving into the second round? That kicks you back to day 2. Or do you see a guy that you want to consolidate all those second round picks for and go all in on and trade up in the first round? That, again, feels unlikely here. So I'm going to balance those two possibilities. The enormous uncertainty with this draft, alongside the fact that things could go any number of directions here, and balance maybe some late first round guys to keep an eye on, alongside some guys that could be there early in the second round. The Celtics do decide to jump back a few spots, and that's something I've heard is certainly a possibility here going into the weekend. But the expectation is the Celtics will come out of this draft with at least one player. So who could that be? Let's start with Duke's Kyle Filipowski, a guy who's been there for a couple years. I'm obviously a pretty avid ACC watcher, being a Syracuse guy. He only has played 2 seasons there, and he's 7 feet. He is a shooter, 20 years old, feels older, and not a huge plus wingspan. Almost feels like a Kelly Olynyk in a way. I know that's who Kevin O'Connor compared him to, sending him to the Raptors at 31. So he does anticipate Filipowski being there at 30. Others have him going in the 20s, which seems possible to me. He shot 35% last year, a pretty big jump from 28% the year before on threes. Shot 3 a game, 8 rebounds a game, good number. 3 assists a game, a good number. KOC notes he keeps the ball moving, relocates, screens, cuts on offense. Can steal a smaller guy in the post. Has a nice touch inside and out. Hard playing defender as well. And certainly someone that the Celtics are familiar with through their assistant coach, Emil Jefferson, who the year before he arrived in Boston, a former Duke player himself, was an assistant on that Duke staff when Filipowski was a freshman. So someone I'm sure who worked with Filipowski directly and knows him well, can provide some insight and familiarity with his game. This seems like the kind of guy who can both play right away if the Celtics lose 1 or 2 centers in that front court, and develop into something better long term, which if you're going to use that 30 pick, I think that's the kind of guy you want to target at that spot. Would you move up a few spots to go get him if you feel like he's going to go before you're possibly out of the mix there? That's this team's biggest need. They like shooting. They like complementary skills on offense at that big man position, and a guy who can defend. And that's something Filipowski is certainly capable of doing there. Sam Vecini, who I respect a ton, has Filipowski at 16. So certainly someone who could be gone by that 30 spot. But he, among many, is my favorite prospect to go to the Celtics at 30 if he is available there. Less favored in my mind, but more likely to be there, is Tyler Smith of the G League Ignite. He comes into this draft at 19, so certainly upside possible there on that Ignite team. He played 43 games, averaged 14, 5 with an assist and a block per game, 48% from the field, 36% from 3. I've seen a couple different measurements for him. I've seen him as low as 6'9", seen him as high as 6'11". So let's just call him 6'10". Certainly that's some center size, though I have seen him pegged more as a 4. This is a guy a lot of fans seem to like. There's certainly shooting possibility there. Nice lefty approach from three, and 37% on catch and shoot threes, according to Vicini and Synergy. That's a good number, and that's something that the Celtics can certainly work with. What I like here is the Celtics' ability to work with bigs, integrate them into their system. There's defensive concerns here, and size as far as 5 goes could be an issue here, but that isn't something that has scared the Celtics off in the past with centers. They've gone with some undersized guys. They've succeeded in integrating those guys into the defensive system in Maine, and there'd certainly be plenty of runway for a guy like Tyler Smith to develop in Maine. It feels like he's going to be there. It's a position of need. You like shooting at that position. There's defensive questions. Sam Vecini really doesn't like his defense and where it's at right now. KOC has him at 29 in the mock draft with 3-and-D upside. Calls him a non-factor on defense, though, who looks lost out there. Freezes defending pick and rolls. Finishing at the rim, a little bit of an issue, too. 43% on layup attempts, according to Synergy. And again, 36% KOC notes isn't a outstanding number. He played for Overtime Elite previously in high school, made 35% and 30% in 2 seasons there from 3. And he's 69% at the line this year, which isn't great. That's his lifetime mark, KOC notes. So a flawed prospect, but again, as we consider things here, all of these guys are going to be flawed. All of these guys are going to have a reason that you might not want to take them at 30. Who has the most bankable skill at that spot? Smith's a mixed bag there. So not my favorite prospect. Filipowski, you get bankable size, you get bankable shooting, and great experience in Duke, which I think is valid as well. Familiarity in his case too. I think the most exciting guy at this spot, if he's there, and again, it's hard to survive until shooting goes off the board. Vicini has Baylor Scheierman, who's next on my list here, of Creighton, at 22. A guy who could certainly be gone by 30 because he shot 38% from 3 on 8 attempts last year. Another lefty, 6'6", 6'8" wingspan. He's a wing. Good, smart player, he notes, who is a great rebounder, which I think is exciting. Hauser, who they're going to have to look to replace at some point here, I would think. Not as strong on the boards, which is probably his weakest point in his game. He got a little better this year. Defense, certainly a strength of Hauser's. Athleticism, quickness, a question with Scheierman, maybe something that gets him down to 30. But the shooting, certainly something that's bankable there for him. 47% in 2022 at South Dakota State, which allowed him to transfer to Creighton and break out there. He played 5 college seasons, so he's a little older. He's 23 coming in. So not really a ton of upside, I would think, at that spot. But do you need upside at that spot, or do you just need a guy who could grow into that position? They certainly signed Drew Peterson, an older guy in his own right, to a 2-way deal to try to fit that mold. But there's a lot to like here. Some pick and roll skills, KOC notes. Great feel, a willing passer, and a solid defender who puts in an effort on that end, which I think is all you're looking for. Not a great athlete. I think you can deal with that. Hauser certainly wasn't either, though he did throw down a few dunks in his day with the Celtics there. So Baylor Scheierman, another guy worth looking out for at 30. We move on. But first, our sponsors. I love Prize Picks this time of year. Any one of these guys could become someone you love on Prize Picks one day. But for now, you got WNBA going on all summer. You have baseball as well. And Prize Picks, our official daily fantasy sports partner, allows you to pick 2 players and you're off to the races, more or less on their projections, points, rebounds, assists. You got Caitlin Clark going at it this year, Angel Reese. All those great players are available for your daily fantasy team on Prize Picks every day. And use our code CLNS and get 100% deposit match up to $100. And Game Time. Go to the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Of course, terms apply. Great tickets, great discounts, and the best deals right up until and even after Game Time. That's the Game Time app. Use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, women's basketball, baseball going on right now. Concerts and events as well. I'll be looking to go to the Hiatus Coyote show later this month, and I'll be checking out Game Time. So great app. Go check them out. Next on our list, A few guys who are probably more in the second round range, which again, if the Celtics pop back a little bit, or they just like these guys at 30, they could roll with them. Jaylon Tyson, I'll start with first. A Cal guy, more of a wing prospect, but some ball handling skills there, which makes him a little more versatile at that spot. That's who Michael Scotto has mocked to the Celtics at 30, who's pretty tapped in. They have not worked him out. And again, Scheierman has worked out for the Celtics. Other guys I've mentioned have not, it appears, at least based on the hoop type list I'm looking at here. What does he bring to the table? I think some guard skills. I think availability. I think he's more likely not going to be there at 28. Shot 36% from 3 last year. I think that's a good number. 6'5", 220 pounds, so he's switchable, a solid athlete, strong. I don't think there's going to be any physical issues on that end. And he averaged 6.8 rebounds a game last year, which is a good number. I think the Celtics want to have some wings, some guys who are versatile at that spot, fit in as rebounders. Decent finisher around the rim. I think you're looking at free throws, 79%. That's a good number. He just does a little bit of everything. 3.5 assists per game. You like that. The catch and shoot stuff, going to be very important for him. He's a dunker. 37% on catch and shoot this year. 43.1% at Texas Tech a year ago. He played for Texas Tech, and California. So he's playing a number of different situations. 6'8" wingspan, Vicini notes, not overly long. A lot of turnovers, 3.1 per game. That's a question. But again, you get a lot of stuff here in turn for the issues. And there's going to be issues with every guy on that spot. Some defensive issues, I think you can clean that up. 4.5 threes per game, under 2. Some mechanical issues that Vicini didn't love as far as KOC goes at that spot. He has him at 39. Compares him to Jared Dudley, Ryan Gomes. A good creator, can get his own shot off. Shooter off the dribble, floaters mid-range, sometimes at 3. And again, the catch and shoot 3 going to be important for him in that Boston context. Rebounding, a plus. So what are we talking about here? He carried a heavy weight for himself at Cal. It looks like he's 21. Those aren't major downsides for Boston. I think you like the intensity, the physicality, and especially the ability to switch here. There aren't a lot of guys who look very switchable at this spot. Going back to Tyler Smith and Filipowski, I don't think he's going to be a major switching big. This guy can switch. So if you're looking for someone with a little bit more of an immediate impact, I think Jaylon Tyson is the move here at 30. And then we go to the draft and stash possibility, which is always something you have to think about. 30, it would be a little awkward. And Macomb Dadier, an 18-year-old from France, who played in Ulm, which I believe is in Germany. So there's some Killian Hayes parallels there, I guess, which you don't love to think about. And I don't think is overly relevant. But again, similar kind of path there for an 18-year-old. And he is connected through ESPN to the Celtics at 30. So interesting. He remained in the draft, had a withdrawal deadline, could have stayed, could have gone. So his intent is to play in the NBA immediately, it appears, according to ESPN. He's visited with Boston, Orlando, Miami, Philly, San Antonio, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. All those teams are more in that early second round. So if the Celtics stay here, I think it's more likely than not that Dadier is there. He's 6'9". He has shot-making ability. He's trying to figure out what he is at this point, it feels like. But if he's a guy that you can keep overseas for a year, I think that's a plus at 30. You don't have to pay out that first-round contract there. As Brad Stevens said today, you're not looking for immediate impact for most of these guys. It's going to be tough for any of these guys to break the rotation. So why not go with the youngest guy with the most upside, someone who could maybe even turn into a star at this spot? And this is really the only guy I think you look at here in this mix who has that kind of upside. 6'7", 6'9" wingspan, great body control, Vicini notes. In Germany, shot 52 from the field, 37 from 3, 80% from the line. That's all really good. So what are you looking at here? Movement off ball. That's important. 45 cuts. All of those off the, all of those leading the buckets over the past year here. You can get him on the move, handoff plays. You can use him as a little bit of a screener too, I'm sure. So he's just versatile, can fit in. He's a guy that I think you can just plug in eventually and have him impact this team. Not overly explosive. That's the downside you're looking at there. Defense, a work in progress, and kind of a guy who just bumps around, uses physicality offensively. I see that as a plus because, again, you're going to have to be physical in the NBA. Not much of a creator either. Right now, it looks like. I don't think that's a problem. That's something he can work on. He's 18. So the tools are there. The physicality is there. And he already produced at 18 in a pro German league. I think that's all good stuff. And I wouldn't mind seeing a guy from overseas develop over there and then maybe come to Boston in a year. Could go to Maine if that's what he wants to do. So all that is a plus. He's a guy I would have no problem with the Celtics taking here. And so those are the 5 guys to look at heading into tomorrow. We will have coverage, more previews. Check out our podcast previewing the draft as well with some experts leading up to the number 30 overall pick. And then we'll be live when the Celtics pick and lean up to the draft on Wednesday night. That's it for now. I'm Bobby Manning, and this has been a draft edition of the Garden Report.